Hello and welcome to 5.1 Lab 1. We're in this lab, or in this learning plan I should say, are going to be talking about loops. Prior to that though, we want to talk about what we can call moving day. Up until this point, we've been working with our JavaScript code embedded within our HTML. In practicality though, in production, in the real world, you don't do that. Your JavaScript is in a separate file, and the HTML references that file. So I'm going to show you a little bit about how that works, and that's the purpose of this lab. So if I open up the 5.1 Lab 1 HTML, let me go in and put in my name section and email. Let me refresh my page there. Okay. And then in Visual Studio, or in whatever editor you're using, we need to create a new empty file. What we're going to be doing is we're going to create a JavaScript file. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up to File, and then New, File, and then there's a bunch of files you can choose from when you are creating new files within Visual Studio. If you go to Web, there's a JavaScript file. Now if you're using a different level of Visual Studio, like 13 or whatever, it may look a little differently, but I'm going to create a JavaScript file, and it calls it javascript1.js. What we're going to do, if we go back, I want you to name it the 5.1 Lab 1 JS, and we're going to save it in our JS files directory. So I'm going to do a save as, and I'm going to go find my JS files directory, and I'm going to save it as 5.1 Lab 1 JS. Now after this lab, what we're doing is we're going to move our code that's in our HTML to this 5.1 Lab 1.js file. If you notice, if you look on the screen there, I've got a 5.1 Lab 2 JS, Lab 3. So the subsequent ones are already created for you, but I want you to get the concept of moving our code to an external file. So I save it, and now it's blank. Let me just make the size a little bigger there. So now that we have this file, if we open up the HTML, we need to take a look at the JavaScript code that's in our HTML file. So let me switch to that. If we scroll down, here we go, to where it says your code starts after this line. You guys have been used to doing this through the first several learning plans, and so now I want to show you how this code can now be moved to an external file that we reference. So in our instructions, we need to scroll down to JavaScript code, and then we copy the code, just the code, after your code starts after this line remark, and we're going to paste it in a file name that we just created, the 5.1 Lab 1 JS file. So just this code, we are going to copy that, and we're going to paste it in here. Same exact code. So now if you look here, what we need to do is, how do we get the code from our external JavaScript file to our HTML file? How do we go about doing that? Okay, what we can do is we can add this line right here before our code. So if we go into our JS file and we put that line in there, now notice I have an error here because I need to put this, another curly brace at the end is what it's expecting. And notice it does the indentation for me. Here's what we're doing. We're taking our code and we're starting to get into modularizing our code. So when you put your code in an external JavaScript file, typically you put it within a function like here, lab51_1 JavaScript. The reason you do that is any code that is outside of a function will run when it's loaded. Any code that's in a function will run only when we call it. So it gives us full control over when that code runs. So here, in order to get this code to run, I have to call the lab51_1 JavaScript function. Okay, and I'm going to show you how we do that from the HTML page. So we've got that, we indented our code. Now we go back to the HTML file, and we got to get rid of that code that we just copied within our stuff here. So we're going to go back to here, and we're just going to delete that right there. So we've gotten rid of that, and so if I refresh my file here, I gotta save an HTML file first. Let me refresh, and now if I go down, you see my lab output's blank. It doesn't say Fred Flintstone anymore. We got to call that function from the external file. So the way we do it in JavaScript is we just put the name of the function right here. lab51_1 JavaScript with the parentheses semicolon. That's calling this function. Okay, so we're calling that function. So if we go back to our code here, now I've got that in there. Now let's refresh, and I want to show you what happens. So I asked the question, did it work? No, it didn't work. Let me explain why. The HTML page gets to this line and it says, okay, I got to call this function. But it has to know where that function lives, where it resides. So the way it knows that is we got to tell it that the HTML page that, hey, this lab51_1 JavaScript file is in this 5.1 lab1.js file. Here's how this works. If you go up towards the top in the head, you see all these scripts right here? And we've been working with the script tag. If I scroll back down to where our code was, we've been working with the script tag. We've been putting our code inside a script tag. If you remember way back from Learning Plan 1, what happens is when your HTML gets loaded, when the HTML browser hits the script tag, it says, oh, wait a minute, what's coming next is not HTML, so I can't read it. JavaScript interpreter, will you take over reading at this point and read what the code is in there and then tell me what it says? So here we've been doing the script tag and then just putting our code in. If you go up top here where we have all these script tags, notice there's nothing in between these script tags. See, we don't have code in between those, but they're different in that they have a source attribute. What this is basically telling it is, okay, HTML, when it hits this line 30 here, for example, hits the script tag, says, whoa, okay, what's coming is JavaScript stuff, JavaScript interpreter take over. There's nothing inside, but with the source attribute, it tells the JavaScript interpreter, hey, there's an external file out there, and then it says, hey, HTML browser, here's an external file respond.min.js, load that into your memory so that you can access the stuff inside of it. So what we're going to do is right up here, right above the head tag, we can put in our script tag, and then we tell it source, and then we are going to go into where we put that, which we put it in, where is it at? Our JS files, 5.1 lab1.js. We told OK, and there it is. So now when I reload the page, it's going to load it. When it hits this line 49, it's going to say, OK, JavaScript interpreter, tell me what it says. It says, hey, I want you to go find 5.1 lab1.js and load that into memory, and I will read it. And so the JavaScript interpreter reads this, makes it available, so that when you get down here where we're calling our function, it knows, because it has it in memory, lab51_1 JavaScript. So now if I go back and I reload, it says hello Fred Flintstone, because I was able to, now the HTML page, when it hit this, it already had 5.1 lab1.js in memory. It knew to access lab51_1 JavaScript function here, which wrote our hello Fred Flintstone sentence to the page. So from now on, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be working with our JavaScript files externally. And if you recall, I've been having you submit your entire directories. It's been for this purpose, because some of you in the beginning of the semester have submitted just your HTML file and not the entire directory. Well, if you do that now, your functions won't work. Your program won't work, because you got to have the external JavaScript file so the HTML knows where to go get it and reads it and puts it into memory. So we're going to be working with JavaScript files now that our HTML file reads. So hope that's helpful for you. If you have any questions, let me know, and happy coding.